Welcome back to Double Al. This is the Week 1 recap. I'm here with Alan and Owen as our special guest, and I'm Alex. This week's episode is brought to you by Blue Moon.
Also brought to you by Angry Orchard.
Finally, this week's episode is brought to you by pasta and meatballs. You can only gain so much mass eating less than 5 meals a day. Eat more.
Good advice. Love the advice. All right. The reason why Owen's here is because he's part of the Griff Committee along with Alan and Ian, who could not make it. And they're going to be announcing this year's Griff Punishment. Owen, you want to take that away?
Absolutely. I'm getting the punishment as we speak. Thank you, Joey. We, as the committee to dishonor the Griff, have, after little deliberation, come to the conclusion on this year's Griff punishment. Just a reminder, this punishment goes to the loser of the losers tournament in the playoffs. As inspired by a plethora of internet research spanning TikTok, Instagram, Reddit, and MySpace, this year's Griff punishment will be the loser being locked inside a dog cage for the extent of one major motion picture starring the ever-bodacious Nicolas Cage, while the other members of the league who choose to be present for the punishment pour condiments and drinks and such onto them.
Very pleasant. I'm glad the Griff Committee came to such a good conclusion for this one. That's awesome.
It was very little deliberation.
All the more encouragement to try and make some good trades and make this year work out.
Absolutely. I feel trades are very important. I think we might have a note on that later.
Alrighty.
I just want to say, Owen, does it make you feel any weirder that you might have chosen your own punishment?
I will hold my words on last week's episode, the comments that you guys made on mine and Anthony's teams until the end of the season when I pour condiments on one of you. Thank you.
Good response.
It's been a pleasure to be on Double Al. Thank you for having me on.
Pleasure to have you.
Yeah, thank you for being on with us. We appreciate it. All right. We're going to move into the matchups that went on in Week 1. We're going to recap those. First one we're going to go over is probably the most exciting one we had from the weekend, and that was Devin versus Bobby. This one really came down to the end of it. It came down to Monday night overtime. And there was very little margin for error for Devin winning this matchup. 0.18. He thinks it's the closest victory we've ever had. Cannot confirm. I wouldn't doubt it. Super close. And the only way that Devin was going to win this is if the Ravens defense got an interception while the Raiders were pretty much on the goal line trying to get a touchdown in overtime. And that's what happened. Super good luck for Devin. If Bobby didn't start a defense, he would have won. He started the Packers defense, got -3. Not a great start for Bobby's year. And these, you can tell that these scores are pretty low. Second and third worst scores of Week 1. Alan, can they bounce back?
Oh, well, I think, and now I'm just trying to pull up the league website here because I understand that Bobby was a little bit perturbed last week because we didn't really do much covering of his team. So I just want to do that real quick because the Ginger Hammer really deserves to have his team spotlit. I think that's probably.
Yeah, spotlit.
So let's just go ahead and take a look real quick. Dak Prescott, starting quarterback, really, honestly, a great pick, great option. We saw on this past week on Thursday, the very first game of the season, Dak had a great game, and Bobby really got a lot of points from Mr. Prescott himself. Derrick Henry, honestly, one of the better players to have in the entire league. I think it is a fact that the last 2 champions of our league had Derrick Henry on their team.
That's correct.
Josh Jacobs, a great second option for running back. Robert Woods and Jarvis Landry as his receiver core. Landry is definitely, I would say, wide receiver 2 for the Browns now that Odell Beckham Jr. is back, but he'll still get you some points. And then having Mike Evans at the flex, while he did not do well this last week, really is a great option. And then the Buccaneers defense, as we already know, if he had not played them, he would have won. So, you win some, you lose some.
Yeah. What defense does he have?
The Buccaneers defense.
Are you sure? Oh, my mistake. I said he had the Packers defense earlier.
I was going to say, I'm looking at the website guy.
All right. Well, yeah. Derrick Henry, I think he underperformed his expectations on week 1. So I think moving forward, that's going to have a better outlook for Bobby. And from Devin's perspective, I mean, you walk away from week 1 with a win. That's nice. But he's got some work to do if he wants to make a playoff push. Luckily, he's in the easiest division. Maybe not the easiest. One of the 2 easier ones. But that really helps out.
Yeah, absolutely. Usually in any other instance, 98.3 just isn't going to cut it. So he squeaked one out this week, but I would expect to see maybe a little hitting of the trade block. Who knows? I wonder how he feels right now about his decision to take a kicker in the 6th round.
Yeah, it's coming back to bite him. All right, we'll move on to the next matchup. That's yours. Allen versus Ryan. Allen 124, Ryan won with 158. And don't worry, Allen. I looked at all your bench players. Even the perfect combination of them, you're not going to win this one. There's no path to victory. Ryan had the highest score in week 1. Ryan's had a strong last 2 seasons. He always seems to put together some 140, 150, 160 games. So,
no, I didn't really have a whole lot of confidence going into the Sunday games after his team put up 62 point something on Thursday with Amari Cooper and Chris Godwin. So that was a big hit right away, and unfortunately my team couldn't recover. Like you said, any bench combination, nobody would have been able to beat Ryan, but it does sting a little bit to have Deebo Samuel's 30-plus points sitting there on my bench. But ultimately, I'm not really gonna worry about this too much, because anytime you lose to the person who has the highest score in week 1, or in any week really, it's not really something to be too upset about. So I'm not gonna let this loss get to my head.
I would recommend that. I mean, the way your team looks, you can make a playoff push very easily. So can't get discouraged by 0-1. Move forward. Any other comments?
I had a bit of an underperformance from my quarterback this week, Justin Herbert. So hopefully next week he can have a better performance. I don't know as if he might have thrown 1 touchdown, but yeah, he didn't have his greatest week. So I'm hoping that next week he can get it together a little bit.
Awesome. Moving on to Anthony versus Owen. As you said last week, this might be the Griff match preview. Although Owen pulled out 104, and it looks like his team might be on an upward trajectory, so I don't know if that's going to be the case. Although Anthony, on the other hand, did have the worst score of the week. That's okay in week 1. You just got to recover. Hopefully there's room for recovery for him. And he could have won with Corey Davis on his bench, who had 26.7 points. I believe one of his wide receivers, or maybe his flex, had 0 points. So that would have been helpful if Corey Davis was in. Hindsight's 2020. Move forward, put Corey Davis in next week. Hopefully he has a similar performance and just move forward from there. And Owen's dealing with several injuries of people on his bench. So hopefully he can overcome that fact. So the 104, although it looks low, might not be completely representative of what his team can do once some of those injuries are gone.
I liked Owen's team a lot, and then, like you said, the injuries that he's dealt with, that big one to J.K. Dobbins, it's an unfortunate thing that can just happen to anybody, and unfortunately for Owen, it happened to one of his running backs.
Alrighty. Moving on to my matchup, Down versus Alex, 117 to 133. Came out on top of that one. This one came down to Monday night. and Darren Waller really saved my butt. Um, I mean, if it wasn't for a few of those touchdowns and all the targets he had, I really would have been nervous. But luckily, escaped week 1 with an undefeated record so far. We both could have had a better performance if we put some of those bench players in. Again, hindsight's 2020. Moving forward, I might put some different wide receivers in at the flex. We'll see. And Raheem Mostert's out for the season, so that's great. One of my top 5 picks is gone, and I'm going to have to fill that flex position with someone else. Shouldn't be too big of a deal. But, it's not what you like to see in week 1.
Hey, if anybody understands the Raheem Mostert injury bug, it's me with him on my team last year. I know it got to a point where it was kind of a joke about how I was saying to everybody, when my team gets healthy, I'll be fine. And then everybody was like, yeah, whatever. And then they did. And then I made a playoff push. And Raheem Mostert was a big part of it. But unfortunately, he just can't seem to stay on the field. And,
so we'll see him next season. But for now, he's off my team.
It's always painful when you have people on the bench outscore people in your starting lineup. But I don't think anybody blames Dom for not understanding or for not being able to foresee that Rob Gronkowski and Antonio Brown are going to get so many touchdown targets for the Buccaneers, while Mike Evans was practically non-existent in that game. So I don't blame Dom one bit for that. Maybe next week we'll see some lineup changes for him too.
Rumor has it he's going to play Gronk every game from now on, so that'd be nice.
We'll see.
All right, moving on. We had Joey versus Jeff. This was a pretty competitive matchup. Jeff, part of that Krusty Cooters division, very competitive. And Joey just couldn't match the 130-point game that Jeff put up. Jeff had a strong performance, and this is his first ever matchup, so congrats, Jeff. Love to see it. And again, Joey had a good performance, couldn't come out on top. But will this disappointment from week 1 result in a trade from Joey?
We'll see. He seems like he's much more up for it. And I know that there are other teams within the league that might be looking for a trade. Maybe some of those teams that are a little more injured or hurt. I know I've heard from Owen that he's open for some trades potentially. Anthony might be. He's with his lowest score in week 1. You never know. So if Joey wants to trade, there might be some options out there.
I'd be optimistic if Joey made a trade for the rest of his year because, just a few quick fixes and I think he can make a playoff push.
Yeah, remember, we are able to trade draft picks for next year, so that could come into play as well.
Exactly. I haven't heard much talk about that from anyone yet. I don't know if that's entered anyone's mind in week 1 already, but if it has, maybe wait a little bit. You still have the Nicolas Cage punishment to think about.
Yeah, definitely not something that you want to, unless you know that your team is going to have a great shot at winning the Shriram. It's really not something that you want to do thinking about trading draft picks.
I'd recommend it to anyone. It makes a beautiful addition to the house, although I think it's going to stay right here. So, all right, moving on to what I believe is the last one of the week. We have Zane versus Ian. Inter-division game, super competitive. 230-plus games, and Ian came away with I believe, the second highest score of week 1, and this was the matchup with the total of the highest scores combined from the two teams, so super competitive. And both of these teams are super likely to be in that playoff picture later in the year. Zane shouldn't be discouraged. He knows he has a good team. He's probably not discouraged at all. This is a tough division to be in.
Yeah. And like I said last week, just because Ian's a stinky Brit does not mean that he's going to lie over and die. He's not somebody that you should sleep on to be a good fantasy GM. His days of drafting Lamar Jackson the first round are over. He's definitely a formidable opponent.
Yeah, all those Jaguar games in London certainly helped.
Yeah, they're trying to reach that UK audience, and we've got at least one of them on board, and one of them that could be making a push for that trophy that's sitting right on your desk.
Nah, it's going to stay here, though. All right, before we get into our standings, reminder this was brought to you by Blue Moon. Great taste.
Rear Orchard, also great taste.
Yeah. Sadly, we couldn't sync up, but two sponsors is better than one. All right, let's look at those standings. First, we got Cock and Ball. Quite the foolish and irreverent name for a division. Nothing like 2 or Krusty Cooters. It's very childish. But at the top, we have Devin, the only team in that division, currently with a win, and he just barely got it. So, Dom had a higher amount of points in week 1. Maybe Dom should be on Devin's radar for the competition within that division, because remember, every division has at least one person going to the playoffs, whoever wins that division. So this might be between Devin and Dom. It might be a little too early to predict that. But, yeah, Devin can be pretty happy with no one else in his division having a win. Alan, you want to cover your division?
Yeah, so Ryan and I had our interdivision matchup, and of course, as we talked about earlier, Ryan came out on top. As you can see, again, the highest scorer in the league, so I'm not too worried about it, because I like my 124, and I would have beat a few people, not everybody, but I would have beat a few people, so I can't really complain, especially with my underperformance from some of my players. So Ryan and Owen matched up against the worst scorer in week 1, Anthony. So Owen and Ryan came out on top, so they're currently ahead in the division, and Joey and myself are bringing up the rear with an 0-1 record.
Yeah, this actually looks like it could be a pretty tough division as well. All of these teams are inspired to try and go and win, so it could be tough. I know if Joey makes some trades, he could be up there with you and Ryan, and Owen's just a few pieces away from being competitive in that as well. Moving on to the Krusty Cooters, almost everyone got a win. Zane didn't get a win because of a interdivision game between between Ian. But it looks like there's going to be quite a few wild cards coming out of this division. The fight for the win of this division is probably going to be the fight for the number 1 seed in the playoffs. Moving forward, I don't think any changes need to be made from any teams in here. They just need to keep doing what they're doing, and they're probably going to be in the playoff picture. Any thoughts on the Krusty Cooters?
Yeah, like you said, very tough division. Any single one of them could come out on top. They all have really good teams. It's really going to be a dogfight for that first spot. But, we might have 2 or even 3 wild cards come out of that division. So it's going to be one to look out for. And I personally feel fortunate that I am not part of that division.
Ian is predicting that all 4 teams are going to be making it, which I'd be happy with. That means I'm making it.
It's not a bad prediction. All of those GMs are formidable fantasy football players. So, and you can tell by the scores. Any single one of those scores would have beat anybody else in any division except for Ryan. So, it's a tough division.
Yep. All right. Moving on to the preview of Week 2. This is all the matchups we have. Alex versus Devin, Alan versus Dom, Brian versus Bobby, Joey versus Anthony, Owen versus Zane, Jeff versus Ian. Alan, what matchup pops out to you to be a pretty competitive matchup for this week?
Well, I think you versus Devin is always fun to watch.
Super fun to watch, especially from my perspective. Looking back throughout the years, Devin versus me, he took the first championship ever in the league. I've beat him in a championship before, and the games are always super close. So, super exciting to play one of my rivals.
I think that's a championship revenge game from last year.
Yep, this is a rematch of the championship last year. To remind you how that went, this is sitting on my table, and it's not sitting at the University of Albany right now. So.
I also like the matchup between Jeff and Ian. That's another one of those interdivision ones, and
that's going to be super tough. That's going to be a high-scoring game right there.
Owen versus Zane is interesting because Owen, I think, even though I predicted for him to to lose and become the owner of the Griff next year, I think that his performance in week 1 has started to sway my opinion on that. So I think that him versus Zane is going to be his first real test of the year. It'll be interesting to see how that comes out. It's also interesting to me that Joey versus Anthony matchup, because is Joey gonna get himself a win just based on, you know, the lesser quality of opponent, or is he gonna lose and get upset? When I say upset, not him personally getting upset, but get upset by Anthony. Although he might personally be upset as well.
Yeah, it could happen. It could happen. Anthony's going to have to step up his game if that's going to be the case. The matchup between you and Dom's going to be interesting. Dom needs to bounce back from a week 1 loss, and you also need to do the same. So this is pretty interesting.
Neither of us want to start 0-2. So
yeah, you do not want to start 0-2.
Whatever adjustments Dom makes to his lineup, it'll be interesting to see how they play out, whether Gronk's going to get as many targets, or AB, if he plans on putting him in the starting lineup, is going to get as many targets. And I like the team that I'm putting on the field right now. I had some pretty big performances from Deebo Samuel and Travis Kelce. Fortunately, Kelce was in my starting lineup, but Deebo Samuel was not. It'll just be interesting to see if my quarterback play can step up from last week, or that's going to be a thorn in my side all year.
Yeah, hopefully he can step up. All right, any other comments before we call it quits for the week?
I don't have any. I don't know. Was there an announcement that Owen wanted to make at the end of the episode?
If he's still there.
After this time, a fair amount of deliberation, I would announce that, well, I had initially intended to put Zeke officially on the trade block at the end of this episode, and potentially even offer a specific trade for him. I have completely taken a 180, and I'm now all in on Zeke. Go Cowboys.
All right, changing his mind. I guess there's no one on the trade block from this episode.
Yes.
That's fine with me. Alrighty. Maybe week 2 will be better for all you people that lost. I'm not in that category. Thanks for watching Double Al. It's been great. We'll see you next week.